So it looks like I totally nailed it. So now let's do an update video and let's break this one down. So I plan on this being the final video for the Charlie Kirk series, I guess, that I've started. I didn't mean for it to go this deep, but there's been so much just crazy news from the left and the right, so I had to just do an update. First off, I totally nailed the majority of it, but one I wanted to definitely give an update on was the Tyler Robinson situation. On my previous video, I said that there's no way that this was somehow a leftist, a radical leftist who was the gunman of the situation. And it turns out Tyler Robinson might actually be this young leftist kid, this radical kid. Now, here's the thing, right? He comes from a Republican family, outwardly Republican. His dad was a sheriff, and he's the one that actually ended up turning him in to the police, to the FBI. But let's just get a little bit of a profile for Tyler Robinson, right? Seems like a Christian family, a Republican family, things that Charlie Cook stood for, weirdly enough. And then there's this kid, Tyler Robinson, right? And I wanted to put myself into a 22-year-old shoes in America. You know, what was going on when I was 22? COVID was just starting. I just graduated college. I went to UC Berkeley, so extremely liberal school. And COVID happened literally 2 months after I graduated. And I need to remember just how were people my age at that time. And people were losing their mind. People were getting totally programmed by the leftist media, me included, as well as, with all of the not hate crimes, but there was the BLM movement, there was COVID, and it seemed like there was an extreme push on gender ideology, especially after COVID. And so I got to remember how impressionable people can be at this age. Now, most people, if not all people, grow out of it because they realize that there's much more to life, like getting a job and getting a family. But unfortunately, it seemed like in Tyler Robinson's case, if he is actually the killer, I'm going to go on the assumption that he was the gunman in this whole situation. But let's say he actually was the killer. His profile, unfortunately, kind of like it doesn't look great, right? This is a guy who had incredible grades in high school, from it seems like a 4.0 and a perfect ACT, as well as, he got a scholarship to go to, I don't think he was going to the Utah Valley University, but he's going to another university in Utah, and he got a full ride to go there, but then he dropped out, and he wasn't working, from what it seems like. And it's someone who's chronically online. So, first off, if you're a chronic, just get outside. It's not that deep. As I said before, I'm someone who was more leftist in the past, and I listened to Charlie Kirk, and I really liked a lot of his things that he said. A lot of things I didn't like was his anti-Islam and super pro-Israel stance. But aside from that, a lot of his, traditional conservative views, I think, made a lot of sense. And he wasn't too fringe. He wasn't calling for anything, outwardly against towards different groups, right? He was just a very pro-Christian Republican man, and there's no need for it. But you can get so siloed as a young 22-year-old if you're just totally focused on, all of the nonsense that the leftist media does push, and you can really start to put and have a lot of hatred towards the other side, unfortunately. And that could have been the case for him. Now, it seems like there's been calls by Netanyahu, as well as calls from the right, and a lot of Twitter influencers from the right saying that this was a pro-trans activist. It seems like Tyler Robinson's roommate, they're now even calling him a partner, was trans, and that's not even confirmed, but that was like the first things that were going out. And so this is, again, going back to my last video, where don't buy the hype. Don't buy the hype from people trying to pinpoint whose fault it is, but it's not even a who, it's more of a what. And they're trying to pinpoint a political party that deserves to bear the blame. And that was my first and foremost thing that I called out, was don't get radicalized by this, because they're going to try and push some narrative. Netanyahu's out here saying that this is somehow a radical leftist and Islam uniting to take down America, which that couldn't even be more wrong. Same thing, there's people on the right that are saying this was radical leftist, like Donald Trump was calling it as well. And then now the leftist media is saying that this was an alt-right, Nick Fuentes, Groper push, and this was actually what influenced the killer, was that the killer didn't believe that Charlie Kirk was alt-right enough. And as you can see, all of this nonsense is just that. It's just nonsense. Again, I think people like that Dean Weathers guy or whatever he is on the left, I don't like any of his views, but I think he's good for America. Same thing with Charlie Kirk. I thought his takes were good for America. I think Nick Fuentes, he's an entertaining guy, and he has some good views that I like, and some views I don't agree with, specifically his Catholic views. And I think it's all good. I think it's, and you have to, like, as you get older, you will start to notice that all of this is for entertainment purposes. It's supposed to be a little trolly. It's supposed to be for clickbait, and it's supposed to be for views, and it's not pushing anything that's too crazy, right? It's just certain parts of the media that are just pushing different narratives to, again, just get more clicks, right? So now they're pushing that it's somehow Nick Fuentes' fault for this, as well as Netanyahu saying it's somehow Islam's fault for this, which is the most absurd things. This guy, if you're 22 years old and you had perfect grades and you drop out of school and you don't have a job, there's obviously something wrong with you, right? There's obviously something that where the parents need to step in and be like, hey, our kid was on a great trajectory and now he's not. Now he's chronically online. He might need help, right? And so we don't know what the full story is again, but going back to my original point in the first video is that don't take what the news and what these Twitter influencers are telling you as gospel. Don't take it as now I'm going to be radicalized, because a lot of them are just tweeting from their desk. Oh, here we go. I'm going to tweet because someone higher up is telling me to tweet, and I'm going to tell people that I'm radicalized, that they should be radicalized too. No, you're falling for the trap, right? You're falling for the trap where it seems like the narrative is trying to push civil war in a sense to take down the left, or the left take down the right, and it's for no good reason. And now, one of the big things about saying that there could be even darker stuff to this, I was alluding that there could be darker stuff in this whole scenario, and one of those was this George Zinn guy, this 55-year-old who I later learned he was 71 years old. He was there I believe he was there somehow part of the whole 9/11 situation. He was either there on the scene, or he was like an expert on it in the past. And somehow it's now reporting that he was not only there, but he tried to be a decoy, and he had lewd pictures of children on his phone, and he tried to get imprisoned. So this is one of those things where you're like, this story is complete nonsense. This is just complete nonsense. Like, you're telling me that a person who's connected with photos of having lewd pictures of children on his phone was trying to get imprisoned on purpose and to let the shooter run away and have a chance of escaping. When you say it out loud, you're just like, this is complete BS that the media is pushing, or someone is pushing it. This is coming from a darker, if this story tends to be true, or if the story is actually true, I put air quotes around true, then you have to think, what is this guy's motive? There's no way that this 1-year-old guy was just doing this as a prank, right? There's no way this was just some prank when he had he had these lewd pictures of children on his phone, and now he's trying to be in trouble. Yeah, right. It seems like there are some darker reasons to it. He might have, And you're telling me he was just confident enough to do this whole thing? It doesn't add up. None of that adds up at all. And so my argument on this is that he was part of a whole operation that could have been darker. And we'll get to that. But because I want to go back to this whole like left versus right, Tyler Robinson situation, where now we have people, I think, Utah is looking to enact the death penalty. I hear even Tyler Robinson is saying he's not guilty. I hear that the potential trans person, he's probably not even trans, to be honest, and that will come out soon. But he's even like throwing this guy under the bus and saying it was actually him. The dust is still settling, unfortunately. It's somehow, we live in 2025, and we have Discord officials saying that there are no records of Tyler Robinson plotting this, but then we have the government saying that there are Discord records of him plotting it. And how is it 2025 and we don't even have clear information on this? And again, that goes back to my point, is that both sides of the media are going to push a narrative just to get people afraid or to get people to attack one another. It's for no good. It's for no good. And so here is the situation though. It's like, okay, let's say Tyler Robinson made it happen and he is the killer. And so what does this mean? Where do we go from here? And unfortunately, this is the way I view it at this time, right? Because there's been a lot of this kind of stuff recently. There's been a few school shooters, unfortunately. Like, all of it is horrible. This Charlie Kirk situation is obviously horrible. Even the Epstein situation hasn't been addressed. A lot of it hasn't been addressed. So there isn't a necessary fear incentive, I guess, but there isn't a fear that is scaring people enough to not do heinous crimes, right? And so this is why one of the beauties of Islam, right now in our society, there is no fear of hellfire. There's no fear of doing wrong actions and going to hell. And right now there's no fear of a strong government sitting in it and making sure that these crimes get paid for, right? And so we have this issue where these young people, they're getting, like, Tyler Robinson, whether he was left or whether he was right, he was sick, right? He was sick. There's something wrong with him. And because you don't just have good grades, you don't have this great trajectory, and then you just drop out and you do nothing, you have no job. There's obviously something wrong with the kid. Whatever media he was consuming, there's obviously something wrong. And this could go on the parents' fault. The parents as a parent, you need to be stepping in. You need to be saying, like, what is wrong with our kid? How can we help our kid? And how can you just make life easier for a kid? Because it's a hard time. So how can we make life easier for him? Unfortunately, the deed is done. And so what do we do? And, I look at it from two different lenses, right? There's the lens of Islam, and there's the lens of Thomas Hobbes. I'm not going to bore you guys too much with Western theory, but, right, his theory was during the time of three different civil wars in England in the 1600s. And his main argument was that you need to have either a strong central government or a strong fear of God in order to make sure that people don't lose their mind. Because if people start losing their mind and they're off to their own will, it's going to be a really brutal short life for people. And unfortunately, Tyler Robinson, this is your situation, my friend. And so, when is enough enough? And again, going to the beauty of Islam, there is that instilled fear of God, the instilled fear of hellfire. With then, there is rules where if you break the rules, you lose a hand, you lose a foot, right? I mean, imagine if with Tyler Robinson, if he did a horrible crime and he had to get his hand cut off and his alternate foot cut off, there's no way. He ain't shooting nothing. There's no more. It's done with, right? And it's a perfect solution to stop these crimes. My point is that at some point, enough is enough. There can only be so many school shooters. There can only be so many assassinations. There can only be so many Jeffrey Epstein's type of sexual women traffic, there can only be so much. So there has to be a hardline solution to this in order for it to stop. And because if we don't have things in play, right? We don't have, certain, consequences, like things for their actions, right? If there isn't a consequential type of scenario where, hey, you do a horrible crime, there's going to be a horrible punishment on the end, it's going to continue to happen. Now, that's if we just take it at the base level. Unfortunately, there's one layer above this, and this is going into what I was kind of arguing at the very end with Charlie Kirk backtracking on his own statements about Israel towards the last few days of his life. First off, we have the reports where Netanyahu is trying to push this is Islam and radical leftism working together. I mean, that's like totally like throwing blame somewhere else, but the blame is so, like, him saying that is obviously just him Israel's the one that's pushing it. Unfortunately, like, that's just what it seems like. When you say the most crazy things, I have to almost believe that the opposite is true, right? If it's the leftists and radical and Islam pushing this, when none of that seems to be part of the case. Maybe some of the media, right? But aside from that, it's like, why are you pointing the finger immediately at these two things when you have no argument for it, is my question. I'm not saying it's exactly Israel, I'm not saying exactly Netanyahu, but why were you pointing the finger so quickly at these two things when they had nothing to do with it? Now, one of the other things I was saying in my last video was that there could be blood money in this. I didn't know. It seemed very suspicious to me how he was backtracking, Charlie Kirk was backtracking on some of his things about Israel a few days before his assassination. And lo and behold, two significant things happened, right? First, it's being reported that Israel was offering $150 million to invest into Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, his news channel or his talk show or his political, company, whatever exactly he wants to whatever is classified as. And they have a yearly budget. Turning Point has a yearly budget of $140 million, and now Israel is offering to double it, essentially, to push a more pro-Israel stance, which he already was. First off, Charlie Kirk denied that. Then after that, Netanyahu personally invites Charlie Kirk to Israel, to Jerusalem, to have that re-education type of Zionist brainwashing program. And that's literally what it is. I've had friends go to it. I've had a lot of friends who are Jewish who go to it. It's like a 10-day whatever vacation where they just go to different sites in Israel, and they really push the Zionist propaganda. So he also denied that. So after, you can't deny the king twice and expect to walk away scot-free, right? You can't, when the king offers you some type of incentive, the king offers that with the expectation that you are saying yes. And he said no twice. And again, I don't believe in coincidences, but let's say this was a coincidence. How perfect. He denies it twice, goes on his own show, starts backtracking about the whole Gaza situation, and then bang, he gets sniped. And then there's this George Zinn guy in the background. Somehow the motive is just because he wants to do a prank, even though he has lewd pictures of children on his phone. I mean, I don't know where I put the tinfoil, but I mean, how can I not? And how can we not just think that there's deeper things, darker things going on in this background? And now it seems like they're going to be pushing different narratives to help take down fringe political commentators or the media itself, right? I mean, the Friday after that the assassination, there was then legislation. One of them being where it was pushed by Marco Rubio or another secretary within Trump's administration, but at least one of the policies, the legislation that they're trying to push was that any U.S. citizen who comments negatively about Israel will get their U.S. passport removed or taken away. Silently, just hidden in the background, right? Where all of this chaos is happening in the forefront, then there's this little tiny, dark legislation happening in the background. And again, what's with all of our legislation being about Israel? Why? Like, can our politicians not make proper legislation about the United States and our citizens? It has to always. There are other legislation policies about Israel as well. I can't remember all of them, but that was like the biggest one where it's like, why? And then there's a week later, this week, there's this whole conference, 50 states, one Israel, where 250 legislators from our country are in Israel right now, listening to Zionist propaganda and being influenced. And it almost seems like it's this 1760 situation where we have like King George, I believe, in England, and we're the colonial states that are just funding these useless wars that have nothing to do with us. And so, in short, going back to the first video that I mentioned all of this, it seems like there's darker motives at play, whether it be from George Zinn, whether it be from the leftist media, whether it be from the Trump administration, whether it be from Israel itself. This whole Charlie Kirk situation doesn't add up to be, it was a one-to-one. Tyler Robinson was extremely fringe, and Charlie Kirk was somehow pushing some crazy propaganda that he didn't like, and so Tyler Robinson wanted to take him out. That doesn't make full sense to me. So, again, and it seems like all of these sides are trying to make, going back to the Hobbes part, is there's different sides of the pendulum, the political pendulum, that are trying to confuse you on what the true issues are at play. And the true issues is that this needs to stop. The assassinations, the school shootings, the sex trafficking, all of it needs to stop, and our government needs to step in to be stronger, because if we don't have a fear of hellfire, there needs to be a fear of something else. And I truly believe that at some point, whether it be Tyler Robinson or the next person, unfortunately, there's going to continue to be more unless there's a strong consequence that happens that gets in play. I don't know what it looks like. I don't want to go no France Revolution on y'all, so y'all can figure that one out. But I think something does need to happen. And again, if you're watching this, there's no reason to be totally pilled by the media. There's no reason to be totally radicalized by what the media is trying to push right now. Just there's more important things to life, like raising a family and getting a job that can help raise that family. And to, again, looking deep into your heart and be like, do you accept what is going on right now? Because I don't know where the path forward is. It's not clear, but it first starts with the individual. And I believe if enough individuals over time start to say, hey, I don't agree with this in my heart. I don't agree with what the media is pushing. I don't agree with what our legislators are doing in Israel and the legislation that they're pushing right now with the passport thing. It starts there. And it starts with, do you agree with it or not agree with it? And then it kind of can build from there. And having conversations like this of people coming out being like, no, I do not agree with this. And then asking our politicians, do they agree with it? Then maybe that's the next step. But I just want to come on and just give a little update that this situation only got more nuts. It really did. And so stay tuned. I enjoy making these videos. I'm going to make probably more in the future. I don't see myself talking about this one directly again, but we'll see. We never know what's happening in this country. So stay safe, stay tuned, and leave a like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think. And if you guys like this format of videos, I'll definitely make sure to make more as well.